Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie Marcus here again. You know, when I look at this situation, I have determined that this obstacle that we have that's causing this great divide is the way we approach things. We have a way that I consider a divine way. I consider that divine way the way of the power that is responsible for creation. Whether anything that we can identify, I call that created or creation. So the power behind that creation also has in reality a principle that leads to peace, prosperity, and joy in our lives. And the opposite of that I call man's way. And man's way can be as many ways as there are individuals on the face of the earth. Every man having his own way. And his own way seems right to himself. And have a lot of conflict when it comes to all the other people. And so when it comes down to what's best for the people, it is my conclusion that it is the way of the Spirit responsible for every individual on earth. That way. And so when we look at Republican and Democrats and Democratic and communism, I look at that as all being man's way. All being man's way. And they have risen to, I guess, to the highest order. The only other opposition was supposed to be the spirit way. But the spirit way got watered down until it has no real effect in society at all. They have diminished the role of the spirit way to donating whatever the state permits it to do. You know, give to charity, create charities, donate clothes and food to shelters for people that are hungry. Do stuff like this. This is permitted to do. And this they call serving their higher power, when in reality it's not serving their higher power at all. It is only through their reduction in their understanding of the higher power. And the sellout comes from those people who say they have a calling to represent God, to tell a teaching of God, who have reduced all the information about God to disciples, where they traveled, what they talked about, to whom they talked to, what kind of problems they had, and so on and so forth. The greatest one they talked about, well, they talked about Abraham, and they talked about Moses, and they talked about Jesus. Those, and Paul, they used him a great deal. But for the most, these were the ones who were talked about the most. And there are still others in there like Peter, the disciples. And they talk about these things, but what does that mean in life? That's not talked about, except if you just hold on. Today might be the day that God has prepared for you, your ship to come in. And while they tell you that message, they also tell you a message, and they ask you for stuff. They ask you for money. They ask you for tithes, and they ask you for offerings. And you give it to them. And they're living in all kinds of wealth. The stuff that you thought that this God that they were telling you about would open up a door for you to live in. But now they're getting you waiting on God the same way the average Joe Blow wait on winning the lottery. Your chances of God coming in for you is about the same as the lottery. And so People don't really want to hear anything about God. Not that God has lost his value, it's just that God has no representation. And I know many people who still understand God and love God and are representing God who have considered being quiet in relationship to God because of the way God has been pimped to the public. But I would say to you, don't give in on God because of the naysayers and the jokesters. You just be good and stand up for God. And I guarantee you, God will get the glory. God will get the glory. I don't care what. You just stand still on it. When you do the right thing, God will get the glory. And those gamesters, they'll get theirs. But I just wanted to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, this is either the spirit way or man's way. Man's way have failed. I say try God's way. And my trying to run for office as an independent write-in, it all has to do with God's way. I am sick and tired of man's way. Man's way has always failed for somebody. Always failed for somebody. And I want you to write my name in because you are tired of a system that's always failing for somebody. And you want a system that works always for everybody. And that's why I want you to write my name. If you can't say that, then you write your name for anybody else you want to. But I don't want you writing my name if you don't see stuff like that. So I want to thank you for giving me this your time. Eddie Marcus say bye-bye.